This is an adventure as fantastical as It Takes Two. A man contracts a bizarre illness that shrinks into insect-like proportions. Even household pets and spiders become terrifying monsters. Paul once had a happy family, but one day while showering, he noticed the shower head that usually nearly touched his head was inexplicably shorter. Then his ring slipped off. Sensing something was wrong, he sought out his wife, once a towering 6-foot-tall man. He now stood noticeably shorter beside her. After arriving at the hospital for tests, Paul's vital signs showed nothing abnormal, yet his body continued to shrink steadily. As days passed, the condition worsened relentlessly. His wife eventually gave up on treatment. They were forced to prepare selling their home to cover the exorbitant medical bills. Paul's frame was barely larger than a cat's. For safety, his wife banished the cat outdoors, and even claimed her husband had died. This enraged Paul. He felt his wife no longer saw him as a normal person, but as a terminally ill burden on the family. Yet his new size allowed him to fit inside his daughter's playhouse. As days passed, Paul's body shrank further. He tied a fishhook to a string, enabling him to scurry across walls and ceilings at home. Suddenly, a cat's meow pierced his ears. Before him now stood a colossal beast. Paul struggled to rise, his waist lacerated by the fishhook. More terrifying, the cat licked its tongue, adopting a hunting stance toward him. It was too late to retreat back into the room. He grabbed a sewing needle nearby, then spun around and took off running. Paul struggled to his feet only to realize he'd fallen into the basement. Just then, his wife's anxious calls reached him. Paul desperately tried to get her attention, but his voice was far too faint. Seeing the cat that had somehow slipped into the room, his wife suddenly grasped a terrifying possibility. Night deepened swiftly. Paul found a scrap of cloth to cover himself, and cautiously approached the storage bin. Fortunately, the sewing needle lay nearby, offering a small measure of reassurance. Now he must climb out the window first, then find a way to alert his wife. But suddenly, fortunately, the basement pipes were leaking slightly. Paul hurriedly replenished his fluids and cleaned the wound on his waist. After enduring the night like this, his daughter's voice suddenly echoed overhead. She was searching the house for Paul, rekindling his hope. He picked up a half-broken piece of chalk from the corner and wrote his name with all his strength. After finishing this, Paul felt only hunger. Fortunately, the basement had been infested with mice. His wife had placed a mousetrap in the corner with a large chunk of cheese on it. Paul used an embroidery needle to shoo away the ants, and then fetched a nail. The trap hadn't been triggered, so he prepared to try again. Fortunately, the cheese contained no rat poison. The starving Paul began to feast heartily. Unbeknownst to him, a terrifying shadow crept up behind him. The basement was teeming with spiders, without a safe refuge. It was only a matter of time before he'd be devoured like an insect. Paul picked up a bottle cap and filled it with water. He dampened a cardboard box with a rag, then used the nail to punch a hole and crawl inside. Finally, he propped the opening shut. Only then did Paul feel a sliver of safety. Days passed. His wife seemed to accept his death, taking their daughter and leaving the house. Desperate, Paul corked open a wine bottle, drowning himself in drunken stupors daily. Worse still, his body kept shrinking. Paul knew that if he didn't eliminate the spider now, and waited until he shrank to insect size, he'd likely become the spider's meal. Drunk, Paul climbed onto the fish tank, ready to duel the spider, but the creature chose to retreat. Just as Paul gloated, fortunately, the tank held only a goldfish. Had it been a predatory species, Paul would have become fish food by now. Cut to Paul, who hadn't given up on hunting the spider. He crept closer, aiming to trap it with a bottle cap, but Paul clearly hadn't seen Spider-Man. The spider possessed spider sense. Quickly detecting Paul's little maneuver, Paul drew his needle, ready for a final showdown with the spider.